Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. For today's video, I'm going to be talking about some of the popular YA books I haven't read. I've been reading YA for about 7-8 years now, so it's been a while that I've been in this world, but there are a lot of popular books I just haven't read, mainly because I have no interest in them, so I'm just going to talk about some of them. Most of these are because I have no interest in them. A lot of it is because of my disinterest in a lot of new YA fantasy and also sci-fi. I hate sci-fi. So that is kind of where this comes from, but I think every book has a different reasoning why I don't really want to read it. So I thought I'd just talk through them. This list is in no particular order. I just kind of did it off the top of my head. I didn't even look. I just thought about popular YA books that I know that I just haven't read. So I'm just going to dive straight in. The first one that I want to talk about is Cinder by Marissa Meyer. So I actually used to own this. I used to own Cinder and Scarlet because I thought I could read it and I thought I'd like it. However, I did not. I got about 80 pages in, I think, and I just gave up. I was not a fan of it. To be fair, now that I think about it, I was never really gonna like this series. I don't like sci-fi books and I don't like fairy tale retellings. Those are two of my least favourite things in books. So this series was doomed to begin with for me. I know that this is a well-loved series and a lot of people have a lot of love for it, but I just have never really thought that I missed out on anything. I don't know. I didn't gel with the writing and I didn't gel with the world and I didn't particularly care about any of it. So sadly, that is one book I am never gonna read. The next one I have is also another one that I started reading, and that is The Raven Boys. So I used to own the first 3 books. I think there's 4 in total. I owned the first 3 and I was really excited to read it because I know that a lot of people loved it, but I couldn't get past the first 100 pages. I just found it so boring and the writing was just not great and I didn't care. I just found that I didn't care about anything that was happening in it, didn't care about anyone. I tried to read it I think 3 times and I got to about 70-60 pages all 3 times because I just couldn't get into it, and I don't think I'll ever read this series or anything by Maggie Stiefvater because nothing else by her appeals to me. So the next 2 I'm probably going to talk about together. So we have Daughter of Smoke and Bone and Stranger Dreamer, both by Laini Taylor. I used to own Stranger Dreamer. I still do. It's in my unhaul bag, but I haven't had a chance to drop it off yet because the charity shops are closed. But I own both Stranger Dreamer and Muse of Nightmares, but I just never reached for it because everything people say about it just doesn't sound great to me. Everyone says that it's really lyrical and the writing's beautiful, and every time people say that, I just know I'm not gonna like it. I don't really like when writing is lyrical and poetic just for the sake of it, and I've heard that these are very like flowery and that's not my interest. I think if I was gonna read one of this series it would be Stranger Dreamer, but I just don't think I ever will because I don't think it'll ever appeal to me. I wish I was interested in this series because the covers are beautiful, particularly for Stranger Dreamer. With Daughter of Smoke and Bone, I feel like not many people talk about them anymore. It was like a classic YA thing, and I think this year's like the 10-year anniversary, I think, and I just don't think many people seem to care about them as much anymore. So I don't know whether they're any good, but I just don't think I will ever pick up a Laini Taylor book, to be fair. The next series I have is a classic in the YA series that everyone has read but I haven't, and that is Twilight by Stephanie Meyer. I just was never part of this hype. I wasn't reading really when Twilight came out. I watched the films, all except the last one. My sister was a big fan, so I watched the films, but I just never particularly was interested. Even in the films I was just like, this is boring. And now I don't want to buy it and read it because I don't want to support Stephanie Meyer's problematic views that she has in that. I also know that a lot of people have pointed out a lot of flaws, like problematic flaws in it, in compared to like the representation of the tribes and the fact that Stephanie Meyer said that people of colour couldn't be vampires, which is ridiculous. And I just don't think I'll like it because it's very classic old YA, and I think a lot of people who like it for the nostalgia now. So I don't know about people who read it now for the first time whether they will actually like it. Another one that's kind of popular, but I don't know whether it's popular is After by Anna Todd. So this isn't really popular on like Booktonet world, well, the Booktube world, but I feel like a lot of people have read this series and I just never have. I've seen the film, the first one. I watched it with my friends and we kind of hate watched it because it was god awful, but I quite enjoyed watching it because it's so terrible, and I'm gonna watch the rest of the films just because I like to make myself laugh, but otherwise I'm just not interested in the afterworld because I don't think I will like it at all. The next book I have is another Marissa Meyer book, and that is Renegades. I have just never been interested in this. I don't really know why. I don't really read a lot of books with superheroes in them, so that might be why. But it's just never appealed to me. I know a lot of people love this, even people who hated the Lunar Chronicles. So I don't know whether I would like it, but it's just never appealed to me, so I guess that's a no. Another one that I used to own is Three Dark Crowns by Kendall Blake. I got sent this for a review from the publisher. I actually got 2 copies. I got the art copy and then the finished copy a couple of months later. But I just never picked it up and now I don't have it anymore. And I've just never wanted to pick it up. I don't know why. I feel like this hype for this series also died down. People were really excited for it when the first book was coming out and everyone was talking about it when the first book came out. But after that, I feel like people just stopped caring as much and I just have no interest in it. I don't know why. Maybe it's my dislike for most fantasy books these days, but it's just not something I want to read. The next book I have is a massive favourite amongst the booktube community, and that is The Diviners by Libba Bray. A lot of people love this series. I've just never been interested in this. It's never appealed to me. I'm not interested in like 1920s ghost stories. That just doesn't sound great to me. I don't know why. I've also heard these are really scary and I hate scary things. I've never read a scary book to be fair, but like scary movies and TV shows are a straight no from me. I'm just not a fan of things that will scare me and I just don't think I will enjoy these books. I mean, if you think I will like it, then try and change my mind in the comments, but I don't think I will, so. Next we have another old booktube classic, and that is TheDarkest Minds by Alexandra Bracken. I feel like again this series died down. People stopped caring as it went on. I started reading this years ago when the first book had just come out and I just couldn't get into it. I didn't like the way it was written. I didn't care for anything. I cannot remember anything from the little bit I read and I just have no interest in picking this up. I know that the series is continuing and like I think a new book came out last year, I want to say, and I'm never going to read this one. Next we have another book that I started but couldn't get into, and that is Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard. I used to own this. I got rid of it. I bought it I think the day it came out because I was really excited about it, and I was just reading it and I just didn't care. I also found that the first book was very, very similar to a lot of other YA fantasy books, but not in a good way, and it just was a bit boring to be fair. And again, I think this is another one where the hype was real for the first book and then it just kind of died down, but then I know that the final book was still like on the New York Times bestseller list, so maybe it's just the circle of booktubers I watch that the hype died down, but I just didn't care. The next one I have is I'll Give You a Sun by Jandy Nelson. This is another one that I tried to read and I really wanted to like it because I loved The Sky Is Everywhere. I read that first and I really wanted to read this and like it because I know that a lot of people did, but I just was so bored and I couldn't get into it and I didn't like the writing style. It was just confusing for no reason and it was very different to The Sky Is Everywhere, and how it was written was just very different and I didn't like it. And I know a lot of people love I'll Give You the Sun, so I don't know whether it's just a me thing, but I also didn't like how it kept like switching perspectives and timelines and it was just very confusing for no reason and I'm not a fan. So next we have another one that I feel like the hype died down for entirely, and that is The Wrath and the Dawn by Renee Ardier. I just no interest. Yeah, but yeah, The Wrath and the Dawn, I don't know what it is about it. I've never been interested in it. I don't really know what it's about. I think it's about a woman who like has to marry a guy but she's going to kill him or something. It just never appealed to me. I also read The Beautiful by Renee Ardier last year and I absolutely hated it. So I don't think I will pick up any of her other books because I hated the writing style. So that is a no from me, sadly. Next I have The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue. I never read this because I don't really read historical fiction and it just never looked like something I really wanted to read, but now I know that Mackenzie Lee is quite a problematic person and she's done some dodgy things, so I probably will never read this because I don't want to support her anymore, and I don't think I'm missing out on anything because I know that a lot of people say the series got really bad as well. So The next I have like a little category, and that is most V.E. Schwab books. So I've only read A Dark Shade of Magic, the first book, and then I've read City of Ghosts and Tunnel of Bones. I really enjoy the middle grade series, but didn't like A Dark Shade of Magic, and I have not read any other Victoria Schwab books, and I probably never will. I just have no interest in reading them. I don't feel like I'm particularly missing out on anything. I'm just not gonna read it, I don't think. I might pick up Addie LaRue because I know everyone's talking about it, but it just never appeals to me. I've said that so many times in this video, but it just, I don't know what it is, but I don't want to read it, so. Next I have Stalking Jack the Ripper by Kerri Maniscalco, I want to say. I, again, have never even thought about picking this up. I don't really like things that are like mystery or murder or anything like that, and I don't like historical things unless it's like the Infernal Devices and I just have no interest in this. I know that a lot of people loved it and they loved the series and they love her as an author, but I just don't think it interests me particularly. I would also put a lot of mystery thrillers here because I don't care about them. I haven't read One of Us is Lying, which is one of the best-selling books of recent years. I will probably never read it. I have no interest in murder mysteries for some reason. It's not a genre I reach towards, so. Next I have A Song of Wraiths and Ruins, which is a new book that came out in June, I want to say, or July this year. I am just really picky with fantasy these days, and I honestly don't know what this is about, but I don't really read new fantasy books unless it's by an author I love, or for a particular, if I get it in like a book subscription box, then I might pick it up. But otherwise I'm very wary of reading a new YA fantasy book because I don't like the genre that much, so I'm very picky with the genre. Another example of a YA fantasy book I haven't read because I'm very picky with the genre is City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty. I used to own this. I got it last year at Yelp and I was determined to read it, but I put it in my on-hold pile because I don't think I ever will. I'm just really picky with YA fantasy, so I'm being very particular with it, so. The next book I have to talk about is Crescent City by Sarah J Maas. I think it's called House of Earth and Blood, I want to say. I'm just never going to read a Sarah J Maas book again. I read the first A Court of Thorns and Roses book, and I read the first five Throne of Glass books. I read up to Queen of Shadows, including the novella, so I think that's 5. And I just don't like her writing anymore. I don't care for books about fae. I don't like fairies. I don't know why. The only fae I like are in The Cruel Prince, and that's it. So this is just not for me. And the final one that I want to talk about is The Knife of Never Letting Go by Patrick Ness. Personally, I don't think Patrick Ness is for me as well. I've tried to read some of his books a few times and I just can't get into them. I'm also just not interested in this series. I will probably watch the film when it comes out at some point because it keeps getting delayed, but I'll watch the film for Tom Holland and then it might lead me to read the book, but I don't think so. I have a box set, but I got rid of it because I'm never gonna read this. So those are just some of the popular YA books I haven't read. Are there any of these that you think I will like? Try and convince me down below and I might consider it, I don't know. I read mainly contemporary, so most of these are fantasy books that I'm just not interested in, so. I hope you enjoyed this video and I will see you in my next one.